I love hive mind. But what is a hive mind? Is this a hive mind? What about that? I know it's not this. But what if I... Yes, okay, it's a bit of duct tape and... Perfect. Am I minding my hive? That's the topic of today. See, hive minds in media often suck. They're either brainless swarms or so uniquely individualized that it's more mind than hive. Depending on how vast and brutal an HM is, they should be the kind of threat that unites men and dragons. But no, some plucky party of adventurers waltzes right in and solos the whole thing. Baldur's Gate. Now don't get me wrong, cleaving through endless mobs can be cool, but is rarely satisfying. Hive mind should feel overwhelming.
We believe in overwhelming force!
They're a singular growing consciousness spread across many vessels. Imagine playing a battle royale where you are every other player, sharing info, reacting, and learning, growing as fast as you can handle. You'd win every time. But media too often treats them as cannon fodder. Here, at a Mirian production, we can do better. I like my world building to be purposeful, not just a buffet of random creatures for the sake of flavor. I call that the D&D problem. Too much and you just get lost in the chaos of it all. So I started thinking, what even is a hive mind? HMs aren't the dragon burning down the village. They are the army raiding it. The result is the same, but the process is very different. This line of thinking led me to identify 3 core aspects of what makes a good HM. Firstly, let's start with the flooding. This is usually what comes to mind when people think of a hive mind. An endless swarm of enemies throwing bodies at you like it's going out of style. But let's think about this. If a hive mind is done well, it should feel more dangerous than fighting an equally powerful solo enemy. Like a one-on-one encounter with a mind flare. Not that scary if your party's around the expected level. But an entire system that thinks, adapts, and doesn't care about losses, that's terrifying. And the hive mind knows this. That's what makes it a great threat. It doesn't fight like a boss surrounded by minions, it fights like an army. The key difference between, say, goblins and a hive is goblins usually care and value their lives. A hive mind doesn't. It's a bunch of drones that are disposable, vessels for a greater will. It's not afraid to lose them because it can always make more. But that doesn't mean the mind wastes them, not at all. Instead of throwing everything forward in a suicide rush, a smart hive moves its forces in regiments. Be smart. Around its core territory, have scattered groups of drones. But these aren't random. They're intentional. The drones are strong enough to deal with any minor issues that happen among the hive's land. They scare off those who might try otherwise. Or most importantly, they let the hive mind know of any greater threats coming out of their land. They can see what the people carry, how they fight, what they are, and the mind for the entire hive will plan accordingly. If a party is wiped out, that's data. The hive learns what it is up against. It builds new strategies, new counters. Maybe it even evolves a new drone designed to target whoever beat it last time. You're not fighting a monster, you're fighting a military intelligence, and it sees war as a biological process. That's the philosophy. You have an army. Play like it. Defend key locations. Cycle out damaged drones, like we said earlier, by using the broken and old vessels in these parties to be wiped out. That said, designing an overwhelming force is easy. Designing one that's fun and memorable, well, that's a bit harder. To make a hive compelling as a threat, you have to give your players or characters a chance, a thread of hope, an illusion of victory. Because it's easy to say, 5 billion elven hounds meet you at the city gates. Players are just gonna roll their eyes. That's not terrifying, it's cartoonish. If it's unbeatable, why even try? Which brings us to the second part, the leash. For however powerful you want your hive mind to be, there needs to be an equaling weakness to give hope to your players or characters. Leashes can be whatever fits your HM. A hive mind that acts on song might have a range limit. Maybe your hive mind works through psychic powers. If that's the case, have spells or wizards who can ward off the influence of the hive. Imagine an invisible force creeping through the minds of an important character just to see a great mage through great effort warding off the approach of this entity. I think that in itself could lead to a great story, where the players or characters use the hive mind's leash to make them predictable or to stay in its blind spots. The point is, you can make the threat as strong as you want it to be as long as you keep that dog on the appropriate leash. That doesn't mean the hive mind are slaves to the leash. Through the story, have the hive mind evolve. If they work through songs, have your party find a relay station, broadcasting the song beyond its normal limits. Mind control has its influence grow stronger as certain conditions are met, where spells they once relied on are now too weak to stop the influence of this entity. I think it's important to make the threat of the hive mind worsen over time, while the leash doesn't pull harder on them. This gives a reason for your players or characters to act fast. It's changing or it's grander than I ever assumed. Maybe you want aliens to act as a hive mind. Have them only be able to come to your world through a portal, and when your players or characters destroy that portal, a massive flying ship appears in the sky as the aliens come to investigate why their scouting party's connection to the hive was severed. A good leash for this faction would be the price of war. It would be very costly for the alien hive to travel so far. Show these leashes throughout the story. So we got flooding and we got the leash. The only thing left to make an interesting hive mind is the reproduction of the hive, as it's more important than one might think. The hive is a singular entity that uses drones to its beck and call. It's their hands and its eyes. So how a hive goes about making new drones will be very important to your story. You could have them work like mind flayers, where they infect others through a biological parasitic infection. This would be very important because the hive will want as many drones as possible, so collecting them is always a top priority. If you go down this route, the mind will want to kidnap instead of killing, so it wouldn't make much sense if the hive is just burning down cities. You can have the hive also work with people, have them interact with human traders. Not everything needs to be done through violence. However, if your hive infects the minds of people through magic, you'd expect to see less aggression from the hive. Staying in the dark slowly infecting people or plotting a massive spell that takes over an entire town in one night. This hive would act slower, more cautious than the others. But let's say you want a biological birthing of your drones, like a fantasy ant colony. I think they would act the most aggressive, needing a constant supply of food for their large numbers, biomass that they consume and the hive uses to birth new drones. You can also show this by showing the effects of the environment on the land, a noticeable lack of food or animals. So in conclusion, a good hive mind, in my opinion, is made up of a flooding of drones, a leash that holds them back, and a reproduction method that players or characters can use to manipulate or control the direction of the hive. No matter what kind of hive mind you want to create, if you keep these 3 guidelines in mind, you will create something that your players or readers find cool or just remember as a fun threat. But that'll be all for this video. Bye bye.